Hey small groups, hey super group, it is great to have you guys tuning in. We're going through our Revelation series and this is week 2. And I know this is a really good series, but can also feel a little overwhelming with the content that we're covering and the amount of stuff that we're covering. So first off, I want to thank you and just commend you for taking a deeper dive in small groups and super groups to spend the time on this. I think it's so worthy to continue to pursue knowing God and His Word more. And so that's what you're doing when you're getting together and going over all this stuff. So first off, awesome. Kudos to you guys. Secondly, don't let the tension of the unknown or the confusion count you out. I'm speaking to myself here whenever I feel a little bit like, that's too confusing, I'm not sure, I'll count myself out and I'll miss a lot of good growth. And so I want to just encourage you to not count yourself out, to not pursue some answers and some good questions because it seems a little bit hard right now where you're wading into. We talked about a lot of stuff. Josh talked about a lot of stuff this past weekend, creation and evolution and young earth and old earth and everything in between with that. And there's no shortage of views on all of those. I'm taking a theology class, and in this class we just recently talked about creation and evolution and all of these things. And my teacher threw out the question or the thought that some scientists are saying it's impossible that we could have come from two human beings. Because of our DNA sequencing and the complexities of it, it is impossible that originated between two people. There had to have been more people that it originated from. And that rubbed me the wrong way. And regardless of whether it's true or not, or how many people have this view or how many people don't, I really had to take a second to explore why there was tension in me for that, what that rubbed against. So even right now, I just want to encourage you and invite you in everything that we talked about. Was there anything that kind of rubbed you the wrong way, or where was there tension in some of the things Josh lobbed out? Because there's good stuff to be found. So just take a moment to maybe think back to the message and all that Josh talked about, and where did you find tension in your heart with that? And then what would it mean to bring that tension to the cross? So this is what I did in my theology class. I just kind of started praying to the Lord of, Lord, why does that rub me the wrong way? Does my faith rise and fall on the fact that we had to have come from two people? And really, he led me to this answer that no, my faith doesn't rise and fall on the fact that we only came from two people. My faith is rooted on Jesus, that he really lived and he really died and he really rose again. And so I can live, as long as that's true, I can live in the tension of maybe the unknown or not totally sure if this is accurate or this view is accurate, because what really matters is Jesus and his work on the cross for us. And the rest of the things, yes, they have an importance in certain areas and stuff, but don't let those details bog you down and take you away from the truth of who Jesus is and what he did for us. Everything should funnel back to Jesus and what he did for us. So I just want to encourage you with that. Don't let it disrupt unity in your heart and with your brothers and sisters too. If you have one view or someone has a different view, that's not the point of it. The point of it is to continue to discover more of who God is and how he loves us. And that all leads us back to the cross in Jesus. The big picture that Josh sent us out with and that we all get to walk in is that Jesus is coming back. And maybe that's a new truth for you, but maybe it isn't. But I'm willing to bet that it's not the first thing that comes to mind when you wake up every morning. It's not for me. I usually think of what I've got to do throughout my day or what I'm doing for the week and where we're going on vacation next or all these other things that get in the way. My first thought is very rarely, Jesus is coming back. But if that was my first thought, that would change completely how I live for that day and even that next week and that month. Knowing the fact that Jesus is coming back should drastically change how we're living. And so right now, I would encourage you to just ask among your small groups and talk. Aside from this weekend when Josh talked about this, when was the last time you thought about Jesus coming back? I know with all the events going on in this year, maybe it was sooner rather than later, but really on the whole span of your life, if you can kind of look back over the past 10, 20 years, I would encourage you to answer that question of how often do I think of Jesus is coming? Maybe put a percent to it. I would say for me, it's probably around 30% of my time throughout my whole life has been focused on the fact that Jesus is coming. But if we're unfocused on that truth, how we live takes an effect or it has an effect with that. That truth matters, and that's a filter that we should all look through. The fact that Jesus is coming back should drastically change the way we live today. It should change how we spend our time, how we use our talents, how we handle our relationships, how we spend our money. The truth that Jesus is coming back should alter everything we do. When my husband and I were just dating, he lived in Connecticut originally. We met in Montana, and then he was back in Connecticut over summer break, and I went to fly out to visit him. But he didn't know. I wanted it to be a surprise. I love surprising people. And so his mom knew and his brother knew, but my husband didn't know. But if he had known, it would have changed how he would have acted differently in the weeks leading up to me coming. And his brother knew that. So his brother continued to encourage. They had all these house projects they wanted to do. And his brother knew that Joe would have wanted them done when I came. So without telling Joe, his brother continued to say, hey, we got to do this, we've got to do this project, and just really ride him all week to get these projects done. Even the day before I came out, they were up till 3 in the morning painting the kitchen cabinets and finishing up the backsplash and all that stuff. So when I came, I just remember this really tired-eyed Joe walking out of the house and so surprised that I was there and not putting 2 and 2 together of why I was there and how this happened. But he was really happy that his brother had encouraged him to get all this stuff done because he would have, wanted to impress me as his new girlfriend when I came. And similarly, we have the inside scoop that Jesus is in fact coming. And that should change how we live our todays and how we live our tomorrows. Similar to how even though my husband didn't know, his brother knew, and it changed how they spent their time before I came, it should change how we spend our time when Jesus is coming. It should change our relationships. When everyone's on their deathbed, you hear stories of this where they say, I wish I, looked back and I valued this relationship. I wish I spent more time with my kids. Or I wish I loved my spouse better. It's usually always where people funnel to. It's never, I wish I had more money, or I wish I had that in-ground pool, and I wish I did buy that Jeep, and I wish I did do this or that. They're always focused on their relationships. And really, our relationship with Jesus and our relationship with others are the 2 things that matter most, knowing that Jesus is coming. We should focus and prioritize our time with God because it changes us and makes us more like Him. And when we are walking this earth as a banner of who Jesus is, that becomes the most compelling way to change a broken and dying world, is how we love one another and how we walk close to God. And similarly, those relationships are important, how you love your spouse and how you love your kids. And even those coworkers. I'm willing to bet there's somebody, if you think about it, if Jesus was coming tomorrow, who would I want to make sure is coming with me? Who would I want to make sure knows Him? And I think we can all think of somebody. In fact, I would encourage you to talk about that for a second in your small group. If Jesus was coming back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., who would you have wished was standing right next to you to join Him? And does that person know Jesus? And maybe if they do, think again to who would you want next to you that doesn't know Jesus? And that needs to alter how we act. Because the truth that Jesus is coming back isn't just for us to walk in and to change and to have this confidence in ourselves. If Jesus is coming back to get me, it should drastically change how we live in this world, because God is not slow in bringing about His coming. It's because He loves His children so much that He wants all of His creation to have the opportunity to hear of His good love. And we are the people to get that done. He's chosen us to be the ones to get that message of love across. As crazy as that sounds, that will always boggle my mind that God wants to use me and God wants to use you. We're broken humans, and God just delights in using us to share His good news and His love with those around us. But that should change how we live our todays and how we live our tomorrows. So once you have that name, I would just encourage you as a group to pray for those people. And maybe make a plan of how you're going to talk with them. Maybe it's inviting them to your small group or super group next. Maybe it's grabbing coffee with them and just sharing how much you love them as a person. But don't let another day go by where you don't share that truth of who Jesus is with someone that you love that needs to hear that message. Let this be an opportunity to reprioritize things. Maybe you've been spending too much time away from your family, and maybe the Lord wants to call us back to investing in that mission that He's given us, that direct mission of loving our spouses and loving our kids. That's our first ministry, and it always will be. Maybe He's calling us to double down in our kingdom talents, our giftings that we have. Your small group can help you figure out, too, if giftings and talents is a new conversation. Your super group can help talk with you about what does it look like to be gifted as a person and to impact the kingdom with that. But I'm willing to bet you have things that you've always been really great at. And have you ever thought about using them for the kingdom? And maybe you already are. But what would it look like to use them more, to double down on those? And giving financially. Maybe we've been spending our money in the wrong places, and the Lord wants us to honor Him with how we spend our money. He gets to have a say in every aspect of our lives. There's no aspect that he doesn't get to have access to or view to, because he's our creator and he made us. And so I would just encourage you, if there's any aspect in your life that you've held separate from God, talk about that in your small groups. What aspect of your life have you not submitted over to him? And let this be a time to finally give that to him. He is such a good God. He is a gracious God, and he's deserving of every aspect of our lives. So I would encourage you in your small groups to talk about that and to make a plan for how you'll give over that aspect of your life. Maybe it's your work life. Maybe you act one way at home and one way at church, but at work you kind of feel like, I can just be this way at work because it doesn't matter. Don't let that excuse go by another day. Let this be a time where you submit that to the Lord and you allow him full access of your life, because it should drastically change how we live, knowing that Jesus is coming back in every aspect of our lives. Guys, I love you. I'm praying for your conversations. This is good stuff to walk in and good stuff to talk in, but I know it's heavy stuff. But don't let that count you out. I'm just praying that the Lord gives you peace in the vulnerability and courage in that authenticity to just be who you are, because it is so beautiful to our God and Father, and it is so beautiful to us as your church. We want to continue to see more authenticity. So I'm just praying right now for your conversations tonight, tomorrow, whenever you're watching this, that the Lord would be in the midst of those, and that he would give you courage to step into that authenticity, because it is so beautiful and kingdom shaking when you do. We love you guys. Take care.